This is the Cafe Racer Podcast, episode 17 for April 13th, 2015. I'm Steven.
And I'm Joe Pop.
You know, I didn't screw that up.
Yeah, that was great. Good cueing.
Amazing. And I did it off my iPhone too.
Wow.
Joe Pop's got a big pop filter.
Yeah, I do. Well, studio guy, so, you know. Plus,
Yeah.
I'm very plosive peas, so I got to use it on everything.
All right, guys. So if you don't know who Joe Pop is, I have to be honest. I didn't know who Joe was until I heard Joe on our friends at the Pace podcast. And hopefully you heard that episode. If you didn't, go back and listen to it because it was probably one of the best episodes those guys have done. And I actually called James after I heard it and said, you know, that was probably the best episode I've heard. And it really was about Joe and his story and what he's doing. So to introduce Joe Pop to you guys, he's a motorcyclist first and foremost in our eyes, but he's also kind of a renaissance man because this guy's done a bunch of stuff. He's got a background in music, film, and tell us a little bit just about who Joe Pop is before we get into what you're doing.
Well, it's funny you should ask. I started playing music and riding motorcycles about the same time. When I was 12, I had my first real motorcycle, which was a Honda 70, something that you could actually shift as opposed to a mini bike. And I started riding that and also started playing guitar at the same time. And I always had dreams of being a motorcycle racer and a rock star. So I kind of chose the rock star path. And I still rode for many, many years, but didn't really focus on it as a career as I hoped to at one point.
Did you club race at all?
No, never raced ever. I've never been on I did a track lap at Indy, during the MotoGP just as the parade lap, but I've never actually raced before.
Right. And I went back and I actually looked for some of your music online and listened to it. And I like a lot of it. You kind of.
Thank you very much.
I like the punk stuff that you did.
Yeah. And I was in a few bands. I was in a band called Dogs on Ice that had a small record deal by a label that was run by Jello Biafra's graphic artist. So, and then I was in my own band, Joe Pop, for a couple of years. And we did a lot of things, opened for Cheap Trick and Joan Jett, and Dogs on Ice opened for Green Day and things like that. But got really close a few times with record deals, but nothing really, came to fruition as far as, big money goes.
So how do you, looking back in retrospect over that career, how do you feel about that? Are you glad you kind of went through that exercise and landed where you are now?
Oh, absolutely. Just even though I never became a professional musician in the sense that I could support myself full time, it's been, a great joy. And I have an amazing job now because of it. I'm the technical director at the City College of New York. They have a program called the Sonic Arts Center, which is a recording education program. Mm-hmm. It's also a music program too, but I'm the technical director for that. And I also teach at City College as an adjunct, and I teach rock ensemble. So I have a pretty sweet job, as far as, what I used to do for work. Music has led me to a very great career.
And then let's talk a bit about your motorcycling. So you started off like a lot of us did at a younger age. And have you owned a bike throughout your life? Has it been part of your constant?
It's been on and off pretty much. I had my first bike I got when I was 17. My first street bike was a Honda Hawk CB400T. Mm-hmm. And I had about 4,000 miles on it, and I got hit head on. And I had a concussion and was in the hospital for a few days. I split my shin open, but didn't break any bones. And that bike went to the bin. And then shortly after that, I got a 78 and put the motor from the 1980 I had into the 78. My brother John actually did it. And then I had that bike for a while. Then I had a Honda Ascot. I had that bike for a few years. And then I had a long break. Actually, no, I had a RZ350 Yamaha two-stroke. Then I took a long break when I moved to New York. I had owned a bike in at least 10 years. And then went through a really tough divorce. So I bought a Ducati after the divorce, which is really good therapy. Yeah. I found it. My dream bike was always a 900 SS SP. After reading a Hunter Thompson article that he wrote about the bike, the Cycle World or somebody gave him the bike on a loaner. So that bike has always been. There used to be one parked outside the theater where I used to work at, and I would just stare at it for hours. So I bought that bike and restored it sort of from the ground up. Everything was rusty or broken on it. So I fixed that bike up while I was on sabbatical from the college I work at. And then I had to sell it because I was broke. Like I put the last bolt on it and then I had to sell it immediately, which was heartbreaking. I'm going to own another one of those someday. That is still one of my favorite bike. But then I had a K75 for a couple of years after that. Then I rented for a year, and now I've got a VFR 800 2002 Honda.
Another great bike. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ducati, that's a bike that I've lusted over for years. A buddy of mine has one that another friend of mine's restoring, and I saw pictures of yours, and it's a beautiful motorcycle, and that's a shame that you had to sell it, but such is life. Things happen.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And it's not like
that bike, it's a different kind of thing. I couldn't really tour on it. It was still a little hunched over for me. And, carburetors, just any piece of dirt, gook, whatever, just the bike conks out, and it had it was just a Ducati, I liked working on it, which was sort of part of the beauty of it, doing the belts and the valves and everything. Just, it takes a lot of work, but that's part of being involved with your machine. I think it's like everything I do. I don't just play guitar. I build amps, I build pedals, I build cables, I record my own stuff. I'm a recording engineer. I perform. I'm on both sides of the glass in the studio. So it's like, I just, everything I do, I'm like that. So I can't just have a motorcycle. I got to take it apart, put it together wrong, take it apart again, put it together, hopefully right.
You learn about the bike like that. And the thing about owning, I always say owning an Italian bike's not ownership. It's, an adventure and commitment. But because I have Moto Guzzi's, and it's the character that those bikes have is the whole reason I have it. I had, before I bought the first Guzzi, I had an ST 1300, and I used to joke it was like riding a vanilla ice cream cone. Bike did everything right. It was a great motorcycle, but it just had no character. It was boring. And my co-host Chris, by the way, sorry guys, I haven't mentioned, Crash is not here tonight, but he's, as it is in the Navy, they keep him really busy, and he's off doing something that he can't talk about. So hopefully he'll be back with us on the next show. Anyways,
top secret.
Yeah, secret squirrel stuff that he can't talk about.
Yeah, I rode a Moto Guzzi for the first time. I rented one last year and took it to Montreal, and it's really interesting. The torque is you definitely feel the bike pulling one way when you gas it, for sure.
You've been on a BMW R bike, right?
Yeah, similar, but not the Guzzi seemed to be more pronounced. I also rented a GS 1200 the same season last year, and I liked that bike. The torque was just, both bikes had amazing torque. The Moto Guzzi, I think, was the 750, whatever the
V7
one. Yeah, V7, and it just didn't have enough juice for me. I'm 200 pounds, and it just didn't seem to have enough.
Yeah,
get up and go.
Bike is kind of underpowered, really, for its weight, and I like the V7 Racer, the cafe version of that bike.
Oh, it's a beautiful bike, yeah, with the little plate on the back, yeah.
There's been a bunch of comparisons made of that bike and the Triumph, Bonneville, or the Thruxton, and it's the horsepower. They did up the horsepower a little bit for this model year, and you can get exhaust for it, but I don't think the exhaust really makes much of a difference, except probably making your wallet a little bit lighter. The bike will be a little bit lighter with the exhaust, but it's expensive. The people that own that bike, though, are not that concerned about the power. It's more about the look.
Yeah, it's a style issue. Yeah, same with the Triumphs. With the Bonneville and the Thruxton, you're not looking to go drag racing. I don't think it's more about the experience of the machine.
Before we get into, I'm going to have you on here for the whole show, and we'll talk about what you're going to be doing and why you're here. just kind of like talking about bikes for a second. Have you seen the Ducati Scrambler?
I have, and I know the guy from the Ducati shop here in New York City. He's a super nice guy, and I actually talked to him about the show. And he does these really neat custom bikes. Like he took a new 899 and painted it like a super light from 1994 or something. So he does all these really cool paint jobs, and he's a really neat guy to talk to. And he was trying to sell me on the Scrambler, but again, just not really enough juice and not really the style I'm into. I really kind of I really want to ride sport bikes. Almost 50 and my back just can't really get it. So I'm more into the sport touring thing.
Right.
So the K75 for me was perfect. It was the C model, which wasn't, the standard or the sport. It was sort of in between, and that was a perfect riding position. And the Interceptor I have now with the Healy bars on it is pretty good. I'm going to get the peg lowering kit and drop the pegs a couple inches, and that'll be right there. But for me, it's a very specific thing. I in my mind, I'm racing. I don't speed or anything, but that's sort of my emulation is when I'm riding is I'm in the twisties, and I feel, I like to feel the G-force and things like that. And the upright position doesn't suit me so well,
Right. It's a compromise. There's no doubt about it. And the more time you spend on the bike, the more that's going to work for you. Are you an AMA member by any chance?
No, I have no. What did you say? AMA fan?
No, a member of the American Motorcycle.
Oh, no, I'm not. I should join though.
It's a good organization. I support it, but they have a magazine that comes out every month. And this month's magazine, there was a story about a guy from Europe that did 15,000 miles on an Interceptor in the first year.
Wow.
And you could see where they modified the bike. Like he had bar risers on it. They changed the peg position.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this thing I'd never seen before, but it was attachment that went over the fairing. It had like an auxiliary headlight in it and made the fairing windshield a little bit higher. But the bike's doable for touring. And there's a lot of people that have done a lot of miles on them. And I think that, the original 750 was a bike that was raced a lot. And I think the longer that bike stayed out, the more it became the sport touring bike and the kind of a standard for sport touring originally before there was.
Yeah. And that was sort of the evolution of it. I mean, I had a deposit on one in 1984 for the 500.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy the bike. And that's sort of part of the story of this, but it was a totally different bike then. I mean, it was Freddie Spencer racing, and now it's about, they call it the gentleman's tour or whatever, the gentleman's sport bike. I forget what they refer to, but it has evolved into more of a sport bike. And the hard bags, I have the factory hard luggage for it that I found, and I put the racks on, and I've got the luggage is a very integral part of my traveling experience, because I have soft bags that I used on my rental bikes, but I got to keep stuff on the bike and be able to lock it up,
So let's segue into what you're actually going to be doing. So tell us about what you got going on right now, and what you talked about on the pace, and kind of give us an update where you're at.
Sure. A lot of great things have happened since the Pace podcast. I launched a Kickstarter, and I raised over $8,000. I was shooting for $7,500, and I ended up with like $8,200 something from friends, family, supporters. I think you gave me money. Yeah, you gave me some money.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
I heard that episode, and I heard what you were doing and what you've got going on. Is something called Pop Over America, and riding across America, kind of in conjunction with music. But this is all for a cause, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll get to the premise of the show. I talked to those guys about Pop Over America, and it started as an idea for me touring as a motorcyclist and a songwriter. So instead, touring as a songwriter and a motorcyclist, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then I talked to Aaron over Asphalt and Dirt, which is an online magazine. And he had the idea of, it's like, that's a cool idea, but do you want to do it for any cause? And my girlfriend, Jenny, has multiple sclerosis. And I just kind of clicked in my head. And Jenny had even asked me, she said, why don't you ride for a cause like cancer or something like that? She didn't even bring up her own disease, which I thought was pretty humble of her to not even volunteer her own disease for the cause. But talking to Aaron on the phone and through emails and stuff, I was like, I can put all this together. So Pop Over America is I decided I wanted to tour as a singer-songwriter all the 48 states in a row on a motorcycle while raising awareness for multiple sclerosis. So that's like a huge description. Never fit on a marquee anywhere, but you know, it's just a way of combining the things I love. My love for riding, touring.
You know, like a great program, because like you said, I don't think anyone's done anything like this when it comes to music. You know, you've seen a bunch of shows that centered around food and travel, but not music specifically.
Well, and I hope to hit it all because like and part of what the Kickstarter was for was to raise money for the pilot episode for Pop Over America. So I'm going to basically try to do the show one state at a time. One state will fill an hour. You know, this is all hinging on if it works or not. So that's the whole idea of the pilot episode. So I hired a professional cameraman, you know, got really great cameras. He's got a drone, all this cool stuff. I have my boss, who's a genius audio guy, Paul Kozel. He's going to do the audio for me. And then I have a production supervisor, Megan, who's my lifesaver, and a production assistant, X, who is a friend of Megan's, and they work together at Soundtrack, a big mix studio here in New York. So I'm going to have this whole crew with me to, you know, and I'm going to first stop is I'm going to go to my favorite hot dog place where I used to go as a kid called Libby's in New Jersey. My cousin still runs my grandfather's stained glass workshop in New Jersey. That'll be a stop. I'm going to go to High Point, which is the highest point in New Jersey. I'm going to go to my friend Steve's house. So it's about friends, food, destinations, music. I'm going to go to the Pinball Museum in Asbury Park. I'm going to play a gig in New Brunswick. I'm going to go to Wildwood. I'm going to go to Atlantic City. There's the biggest organ in the world there. I'm going to try to let them get me play it, you know, and then I'm going to try to cram all this in an hour episode if I can. And that's sort of the difficulty, you know, and some of the songs I'm writing are about Jenny's battle with MS. So, and I'm going to do phone calls with her, you know, while I'm on the road, talking to her like through face chat or, you know, FaceTime, whatever.
Right.
And, you know, that's part of the journey too. And cut away to some of her struggles every day. She lives in New York City and she commutes from Brooklyn to Manhattan on the train, you know, and she uses a cane and people are knocking her over and she's got ice to deal with and fighting to get a seat and things like that. So it's sort of like a contrast of me being out on the road and being free and doing all these great things and her kind of struggling, you know, just with her everyday life. And, you know, my respect for that and how lucky we are to be able to ride motorcycles and things like that.
You know, it's funny, if you don't know what MS is, it's just another disease name to you. And if if you've never known anybody who's struggled with it and seen them, you know, have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, it's very difficult. So this is good because it'll bring some awareness to it. And I know you know Paul Pellin, right?
Yes, I just signed up for the MS 5000, but I haven't done 1 mile because my bike is incapacitated. But I have raised $70. Actually, Jenny got me some money from her office, and she kicked in $35 for herself. So once I start getting the bike under me, I'm going to really start kicking the MS 5000 event, which Paul has MS. And he's out there riding, you know, just as much as he can. And he's just super inspiring to me when I started this project.
Yeah.
And just
rider, you know, it just blows me away. And I didn't know who he was until one of our listeners turned me on to him. And I did MS 5000 last year. And I think
awesome.
I came in like right under 5,000 miles because I rode out to Arizona and back. But, you know, and the whole time I'm on that trip, I kept thinking about Paul with MS and Paul, like, doing these crazy lunch rides for, you know, like 1,500 miles to lunch and 1,500 miles back. These ridiculous things they do.
No, and it's like 20 degrees or 0 degrees. He's like, oh, I guess I'm going out today. And he puts on his stuff and he rides up into the ice
on a scooter with a top hat and, you know, tails and stuff. And it's just like, talk about an inspiration. And this guy, I was trying to get Paul on the show tonight with you, but I'm kind of glad it's just you and me and we can talk a lot about this. But
well, he's his own show. I mean, he definitely could. He's done so much for the cause. I mean, he raised 50 grand, I think, last year, right? Was that correct? He raises a lot of money, I know. So I hope to kick in at least $500,000 if I can do it. You know,
it's a great cause, and what you're doing is also, you know, important just on the awareness level. You know, just to get people to start talking about it and understand what the disease is about and how it affects people. Because I just don't.
Well, that's how I thought I would approach it, because a lot of people are like, well, you're going to raise money. And I'm like, look, you're giving money to my pilot. I'm not giving money to MS. There's a million places you can do that. You can go right to their website and give them $1 million today if you want to. But my thing is more about raising, what you talked about, what is the disease? What happens? My girlfriend Jenny, it's something different every day. Sometimes her legs feel weird. Sometimes her vision is blurry. She loses her balance. That's how she found out. She fell down some stairs and smashed her foot, and so now she has MS and a bad foot from all related to that. So, I mean, I thought it would be more important to say, here's somebody that has it, here's where you can go to give money. Here's a link to it. It's right on my site. You can go give them money directly if you want to. You don't have to. I don't need any more money for the pilot. And my idea with the pilot is to shop it to all the networks, and then hopefully somebody picks it up, and then I get to do the 48 states, with a real support team. Not that my team now isn't real, but like with a lot of money from a network or a website or something like that. But either way,
it's going to go as far as the support. Like, are you planning on? Is the cameraman going to ride a bike with you? Or are they going to all do it like in a support vehicle or?
Oh yeah, we have a chase vehicle because he's got a pretty good collection of cameras, and I was gonna have him. I actually was gonna hire another cinematographer that had a bike, but I wanted a little more. Bring the best gear we can bring, as opposed to like a camera bolted on a motorcycle, and more static shots. There's going to be a lot of things that aren't on the motorcycle. The motorcycle will be some of it, but we're going to be doing setup shots in restaurants and gigs at clubs and things like that. So he's got a vehicle for the audio guy and himself, and the crew will ride. They have like a little SUV thing that they're gonna ride around, and loaded with cameras, everything. But we're gonna keep it pretty low key. Not a lot of lighting, not a lot of extra stuff. I'm really particular about the audio. I want to make sure the audio is going to be really good for the pilot, and I have Soundtrack New York, where Scorsese mixes and all these famous films are mixed, has donated the mix to me for the pilot episode. So I wouldn't even be able to afford that anyway. Even if I could afford it, I'd probably spend the money in other ways, because it's such a expensive thing to do at such a high quality place. But they have been so generous to me, and really great things are happening with that. So
the date's still set July 8th through 11th for the pilot?
Yep, that's correct. And I've got a gig July 9th at Court Tavern in New Brunswick at 7 o'clock. And a lot of the guys from the VFR websites are going to try to show up and do like a ride-in for that. I'm also going to the Vintage Motorcycle Festival at New Jersey Motorsports Park, which is on the 10th. And I'm hoping to secure a live playing spot there too. They have music, so I'm hoping to just play a short set, look at the vintage bikes. Hopefully there's a parade lap or something I can do there too.
So obviously with the pilot, we're not going to be able, that's something that you're going to use to shop the show, and then the intent would be that it would be the first episode.
Maybe not. I mean, it's really just to try to generate interest. They might try to tweak the show, like, we like it, we don't want the food, and they'll probably want to reshoot the episode anyway. But it's going to be public. I mean, I'm going to definitely share it and try to gain interest with it. But either way, if I don't get picked up by a network, I get a sabbatical in 2016, and I'm just going to shoot it myself. If I have to, I'm sort of determined to do it. That's one way or the other. So
I can tell by, I think you and I had a conversation about this a while ago, that no matter what happened, this was going to take place.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't have to be some high production value. I mean, I'm gonna have a drone in the pilot. I'm not gonna be able to afford all that stuff if I'm doing it on my own. But maybe that's the charm of it, me and a GoPro and an iPhone, and my little laptop with Pro Tools on it, and Final Cut 10. I can do a lot with that. The problem I ran into on the road when I was trying to even blog is like the time it takes to put it together, So I have to find a way to get to sort of cut the episode up very quickly and put it out there, so I can concentrate on writing and having fun and playing music and riding across America and,
right,
spreading the word.
I gained a real appreciation for people that travel and blog when I went on the trip last summer, because my intention was to ride every day, then get to a hotel and download photos and put them up on a post.
Yep.
Never happened. by the time I would get where I was going and try to get some food in a room, I was like exhausted. Would fall asleep usually like at 8 o'clock at night. But I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. Just from the standpoint of the education on MS, but also for having this is the type of programming that I enjoy, is seeing people do a trip that I might not be able to do, or go places I might not be able to go to on a motorcycle. And then the aspect of the music involved too just makes it even better. So,
well, I did a cross country trip in 2012, and that was on my K75, and I had a blog going called Tales of the Flying Brick, where I blogged that. And I realized I was, 2 weeks away from home, and I didn't have a guitar with me. And I'm like, man, this is nuts. I'm a guitarist. I need a guitar. So
a mandolin or a ukulele?
I'm sorry?
What are we bringing? A mandolin or a ukulele for a guitar on this trip? Or are you going to take?
Oh, no. This is a Gibson J200, which is a jumbo acoustic. It's like the worst guitar I could try to put on a motorcycle, but it's the guitar. It's my dream guitar that I always wanted my whole life, so I finally bought it a couple years ago, and I'm like, I'm not cutting corners on this. And I'm going to, once I get my bike up to school and I can figure out how to mount the case, I already have a lot of good mounting ideas. I'm going to have the guitar down is going to basically replace one of the factory saddlebags. Mm-hmm. So I'll have a saddlebag, a top case, and a guitar case. And I'll have to travel pretty light, but there'll be room for a duffel bag on the pillion too. Like I don't have to, I can keep dirty clothes in that or something, if it gets stolen, no big deal.
So this is going to be on the VFR, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is this fuel?
If I can get the clutch bled. I'm sorry?
Fuel injected or carbureted on this bike?
It's fuel injected. It's a 2002. It's the first year of it's the sixth generation, they call it. So second generation of fuel injection. It's the first VTEC one. So I've yet to I've ridden the bike about 80 miles so far. So I don't really have a good handle on it. And it was pretty much highway driving from Long Island back to where I keep the bike at Riders Alley, which is a garage here in New York. And I didn't really get a chance to do any twisties or hard acceleration or anything like that. But the bike does have some get up and go. I mean, it's 105 horsepower roughly. So it's, that's right about where I like it. I don't need 200 horsepower, but 75, 70 is not quite enough. I need something to pull me along and all my stuff too. So
this is that was the single-sided swing arm and the kind of angular look, right?
Yeah, it's very kind of pointy looking.
I like that bike.
Yeah, single-sided swinger.
Yeah,
but very popular. They sold a ton of them, so there's parts everywhere. There's 2 or 3 forums for the bike, so I'm always on there asking for advice, and it's unbelievable the generosity of these, like VFR World and VFRD. Mm-hmm. These people are just volunteering their knowledge for nothing, and it's such a cool community to be a part of. Motorcycling in general, I think, is like that.
I think the whole community is like that. No matter what forum I've ever been involved on, what bike I owned, or if I had a problem and I put it out there, there was usually an answer right away. If not, somebody was asking for my phone number and would call me direct, and be willing to share information or send me stuff. And that's one of the reasons I like this, I guess, sport or hobby, is because of the community involved around it. And like the vintage bike community and the cafe racer communities, even the same way. It's just a bunch of really great people that we've come in contact with. I mean, it's a great way to support your trip, is to have this support network out there that I'm sure you've got people telling you, hey, if you need a place to crash, because my house will be open for you if you come down to South Florida. But
well, already, I mean, like before I even bought a bike, Chris from the Pace podcast, I was looking at this 5th generation VFR, and it was kind of sitting for a long time, and it didn't really run well, and I didn't know if the electrics were all right. But Chris offered to drive up from Delaware with his trailer, pick the bike up, store it for the winter, and then bring it back when I was ready to ride for the spring. And I met the guy like on an email, and that's pretty incredible when you have people who just are pulling for you to get a motorcycle, and they want you to ride because they're looking to support the thing. And I mean, I think music is a lot like that too. Maybe not so much as it used to be, but I was broken down on a rented BMW one time, and this, guy out of like a motorcycle film pulls a long beard on a Harley, and I'm on this, sport touring thing. It was I forget, 800 GS or something. And he pulls up beside me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm broken down, but I got the tow truck coming." With cell phones now, it's pretty simple. And the rental company had a towing service. But he made a point to stop. I'm not a Harley rider. He was a different style of motorcycle, but we shared this thing together, two wheels, man. It almost doesn't matter. I bet if I had a scooter, the guy would have pulled over, And he's like, "Just making sure you're okay." And he rattled off with his girlfriend on the background, his Harley about 10 inches off the ground, big back tire. And it was just neat. It felt like, we'll take care of each other no matter what happens. And I, in turn too, I stop for people to say, "Hey, you all right?" Or when I'm on my bike, and, it's kind of just pay it forward kind of attitude.
Yeah, you'll find, like, when I was on the trip, people would stop. Like, I got off the highway and got onto like a gas station or something to just take a break and get some drink. The people that were even in cages that pull up to me to talk were all motorcyclists. Hey, where are you going?
Yeah.
Like, Florida plate. Where are you going? Blah blah blah. And it was always, "You need anything?" And like I'm sure you're going to get offers for all kinds of things, Joe, gear and everything. And
well, you already sent me a sleeping mat. You did. So yeah. I'm going to sleep good. And my first episode, my pilot is my friend Steve is going to teach me how to camp. Like, I've never really camped. So I'm going to take that sleeping pad you have, and he's going to set up a tent with me. And that's going to be part of the episode, because if I'm going to do this by myself, if I don't get the support, I'm going to have to find cheap way to spend the night. I can't spend money on hotels every single night. And a lot of it's going to be, couches and friends and the kindness of others. But sometimes, I don't know anybody in Utah, or, I might have to camp out. So,
Mike Kaiser, who's owns a company called Kinder Rider. They manufacture motorcycle clothes for kids. He's also the director of sales for the Overland Expo. And I've become friends with Mike. And when we were heading out to Arizona to the Overland Expo, we were kind of like, texting each other and calling. And on the way back, we were kind of keeping, tabs on each other where we were at. And so, like, I'm looking for campgrounds to sleep in, like places that are regular campgrounds. And Mike and the guy that he rode with, they were like pulling over at a gas station and finding like an empty field in the back and camping there. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, I'd be totally up for that. My only thing is, legality. I don't want to, have my bike towed away. Did I wake up and I'm in prison or something? I just want to. I mean, most places, like, I live in New York. You sleep on the street. You're, it's a different thing here. So, and I've never really done it. I did a cross country in 2012, and it was all hotels or friends' houses and things like that. But there is a part of me that definitely wants to try the camping thing, and it's new. Like, I want to try to cook my own food outside, and but I'm definitely a novice at that, so I'm gonna have to get some education.
I've met have been in campgrounds. In Oklahoma, I ended up in this place that I was by myself, and there was a family there, and they invited me over for dinner with them. They were making like prime rib and all this great.
Wow.
It's been the camping experience.
Yeah, send me their email.
It's a lot of fun,
That's
kind of like dialed in and like get your gear the right way so you're comfortable. For me, it's not about like I could care less about the food, even though I am kind of a foodie. But I'll go to like the local gas station and get a can of chili and some Fritos, and make Frito pie. But it's for me, it's
that's You're talking my language. I'm the bar food guy, chili dogs and chicken wings, and my girlfriend's always on me to like straighten up, and I've been doing better lately. But on the road, it's so.
You're there, Joe.
The anchor bar interesting because I think that people they're cared. You don't almost have a demeanor about everything in general, about life in general. They're not hung up on material goods, I would think. Maybe I'm generalizing, but it just seems like I've never camped, but everybody I've talked to says people on campgrounds, like, for the big GP races and motorcycle races, a lot of people camp out, and everyone's like, it's an amazing community. It becomes a community almost by default. You're huddled with people in a place, and you got to get along.
The more I do it, the more I like it, and the more I get the sleeping. That, for me, like I said, that's the biggest thing, is being comfortable sleeping. So the closer I get to having that perfect sleep and hauling around the right crap to make that happen, the more I like camping. The only thing, there was some places where, I'm looking for a campground, and the cost of the campground was the same as like going to a Motel 6. So those were the times where I said, all right, I'm going to get a hot shower, have a room, because for me, it's going to be about the same money to get a camp. When you're looking at $35 for a tent space and I can get a room for 37, I'm taking the room. But the experience is different. The campground's always more of an experience, and people come up and talk to you, and you just have to it's just a matter of, your buddy will kind of teach you this, but it's just a matter of getting the gear squared away the right way, and figuring out what you can pack on the bike and what works for you. And like, there's like little conveniences that you kind of like my wife got me this little bamboo set of silverware. So it's like a little bamboo knife, a spoon, a fork, and a set of chopsticks that are really light, and they're in this little like nylon padded case. And that's what I take for my, my silverware when I go camping, is that little bamboo thing. And just those little tiny accoutrements, those little comforts, is what makes it different for you. But
Steve, I lost everything you said for the past minute and a half. I didn't hear a single word you said. It's I don't know if it's an adjustment I can make or something, but it just sounded like the whole time. So I think it's still doing it.
I got the same thing.
Check 1 2. Yeah. I can't understand you.
How you doing? Can you hear me now, Joe? Hold on a second.
I don't know. I don't know if I can make a quality adjustment here. I'm not that handy with this Google stuff, but
I think it's a bandwidth issue that we have with Google, because I got the same thing from you for a second, where you were kind of like blanking out completely. Can you hear me now? Okay. Actually, I think I might have lost Joe there for a second. You back, Joe? I see you. Okay. Can you hear me? Anyway, well, Joe works on that. We'll talk a little bit about his website. So it's www.joepop.net/Pop Over America. And he also has a Facebook page that's Facebook/Pop Over America. And there's a Kickstarter page, which I think is done and closed on his Kickstarter. He, like you said, he raised the money. You there, Joe? Joe, can you hear me? Joe, I see you, but I don't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, Steve. I still got nothing.
Okay. I'm here. I see you fine. Strangely enough. Very strange here. This is one of the things that technology does for us, is kind of shafts us a little bit. I still see Joe. We're doing this show on Google Hangouts on air, and the funny thing is, one of the questions that came up in the Q&A was from another podcaster asking if this was a good venue to do podcasts on. And typically we don't usually have any problem, but tonight looks like our bandwidth is kind of killing us. I see Joe, and he says it's still skipping. He sent me a note. Okay. I'm going to send him back a note. Anyway, let's get to a little bit of news. Joe, if you hear me, just start talking. If you can hear me, okay. I just think it's a bandwidth issue. So you guys hear us, Chris and I, talk about the AIM Expo a lot in Orlando this year, 2015, but we just got notification that BMW of America is now joined in on the AIM Expo. And I kind of predicted that they needed to have BMW and Honda to round this thing out. So I'm just waiting to see if Honda is going to come to the table too. BMW is definitely in. This show is a lot better than IMS. Certainly the IMS that I went to in Miami was kind of a dog. But if you can make it and you want to go to a large motorcycle centric event that's got demo rides. It has a bunch of outside events going on. Try to make the AIM Expo. I'll put another link on the website for the show for it. Let me just send Joe a message here real quick. Hey, Joe, can you hear me?
I tried lowering my video bandwidth. Are you hearing me okay?
I hear you great. Can you hear me? Lower my bandwidth.
Yeah, it's like your audio's skipping or something. It's
Okay,
just
hold on. I'm going to lower the
I
bandwidth.
can't even hear enough to hear what you're saying.
Hold on one sec, Joe. I'm going to lower the bandwidth here.
Should we call back? Do you want to do that?
Let me just. Oh, you hear me? Hey, Joe. Can you hear me now? Joe.
Still skipping really
How about now?
horribly.
I lowered the bandwidth. You any better? Is that any better, Joe?
Try to toggle something here.
All right, guys. Let's see if this works here. I'll be cutting all this out of the show, but if you're watching live, I apologize. But this will be edited out in the final version of it. How about now, Joe?
You know what? I think it's my audio interface. Can you still hear my voice?
I can hear your voice fine. Yes, I can. I hear you good.
Okay, I'm gonna check 1, 2.
I hear you great, Joe. I got good levels on my end. You're
Okay. All right. So what happened is there's something wrong with my audio interface. I have a Apogee Duet and it conked out on me or something. So
yeah,
we're back.
Good now. You sound great. Yeah, because for a minute there, you were doing.
No, wait, I can't hear you now.
How about now?
Hold on. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, man. Don't worry about it. The magic of editing.
There we go. I got you. Okay.
It was funny.
We're back. Sorry for that.
This is a really funny thing that happened is because before I started cutting out on you, you were cutting out on me, and I just kept talking. But you can't see it, but in my window, I have a Q&A function where people ask questions. And some woman right before all this nonsense started, some woman asked a question, hey, I'm just checking out Google Hangouts on Air. Is it a good thing to use for podcasts? Well, Kimberly, sometimes it doesn't work, and it's really dependent. And the thing is this, Joe, the whole Google Hangouts on Air thing, in my opinion, was designed for people with a gaming headset and a camera
right.
in the computer.
Yeah.
You and I are using, audio gear with mixers and broadcast quality mics. We've got cables running in. I've got, a recorder doing a backup recording and all this other stuff. So I think the more stuff we add to it, the more we complicate it. But
right, yeah. So now I'm just using the interface for my mic, and then I've got the headphones plugged in right into the computer. So I think we're set now.
And the reality is, the people that actually watch this live or watch it on iTunes is not anywhere in comparison to that download as a podcast. So it's the magic of editing, all that dead airspace will be gone.
Yep. I mean, you talked for a while, and it just sounded like yip, 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 yip.
Yeah.
Like,
like I said, that same thing happened to me before that all happened, and I just kind of through it. It's all right, that's just what
all right. Yeah,
it's about
technology.
They can just take it out of my show's salary, right?
Exactly.
Chris can just dock my pay.
Good.
Anyway, listen, man, I'm hoping that we can keep in touch with you the whole time this is going on, and that we'll have updates. So do you have a Twitter account?
Yes, I have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and all those are Pop Over America, one word after, Twitter /Pop Over America, Instagram /Pop Over America, Facebook is Pop Over America, popoveramerica.com. All the social media links are on the website off to the left in the menu on the left side, and they take you right to the page.
So what I'm going to do is I'll put a link in the show notes for joepop.net, Pop Over America /
Actually, if you just put popoveramerica.com, it'll take you there as well.
Perfect.
Even easier for you.
And there's some real good information in here. Now I see something called Jenny Sidecar. Explain to me what that is.
Well, I felt like I wanted to have Jenny involved, my girlfriend that has MS. So she's a writer. She was a comedy writer for a while. She's very funny, but she also is a serious, she writes a lot. So I wanted her to contribute too. So she writes poems, she writes little stories and things like that. And we joked that, I'd take her with me and put her in a sidecar and we'd do it together, but that's not possible financially for us. And I don't even know that she'd want to go 48 state trip, tour. But so that was the joke, and that became sort of her platform. So if you click on Jenny's sidecar, there's a poem about the first time she rode a motorcycle and she got scared. But now once I get my bike running, she wants to try again, and sit on the back. And, that's my idea for the final episode, is to go pick her up in Brooklyn and take her to Shrine, a club I play in Harlem, and roll up on the last gig with her. So that's the plan there. If we make it.
I checked out all the links when I first heard about you on the website, and that's where I found the music, was on the music link, and there's a lot of really cool stuff on here. But I got to ask you, the Pop Over America logo is decidedly like Soviet Union looking, that typeface. Is that by design?
Yeah, it's the guy who designed the logo is my best friend. He moved away to Belgium last June, but he's been my best friend for years and years, and we played in bands together. We've been in the last 5 bands I've been in. He's been the drummer. He's been a great supporter of me through every life change. He's just always there. And my wingman, Tyler Duran, and he's a graphic artist by trade. And I approached him and I said, I want to really he does this kind of Soviet era stuff, but I'm I really want a stark logo. I want it to almost look like it's made out of tape, I want it to be not slick. And he's like, well, okay, I'll try some stuff. And he's so brilliant. He sends me 50 sheets of different logos and colors and things like that. And I decided I wanted the logo to be square, because a lot of social media stuff is square now. And I wanted to make some square stickers too. So, and he had done a logo for me, Joe Pop, that was the same kind of font. So I had him do the logo, and the star was originally just black. But since I added the MS component, the color for MS is orange. So I changed the star to orange. So it does have a very industrial looking Soviet era thing about it. And I actually built a distortion pedal called the Gorbachev, which is a Soviet era Electro-Harmonix Big Muff pedal that I cloned sort of and made my own tweaks to. And I've been selling those. So there's a whole tie-in with that. And I just like it. And a lot of people either love it or they say it looks bootleg, but I like what it is, because it's sort of like me. It's kind of ham-fisted and not a lot of nuance, but the message gets across.
So can you hear me, Joe?
Yeah, I got you.
You have stickers and stuff that you've got for sale now?
Oh, I got everything. It's on. There's a store on there. I have T-shirts. I have stickers. I have guitar picks. And I'm actually going to add a donation link, because my production expenses keep skyrocketing. So, and I don't know, I'm not expecting a lot from the donations. I raised a good amount of money for my Kickstarter, and I'm funding some of it myself. But I paid for the motorcycle myself. That was no way associated with the Kickstarter. But yeah, there's stuff up there for sale, and easily it's not 3 stickers I think are $5, 3 picks are $5, shirts are I think 30, including all of it includes shipping. So New York prices. Things are expensive here.
Can you hear me all right, Joe?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm getting everything, but maybe when you're off mic, I'm not quite raking it in.
I was
Do you have
I'm had to, while you were talking, fix a couple of things here, and that's why you kind of heard
Okay.
stuff back. Typical Steve maneuver, but everything's good now, and
Okay, Steve.
Actually, I just got the website to open up for me, so now I see, because when I first did that, and that's why I asked you, the store wasn't coming up, but that was my computer. And you're going to be
Man, we're
getting,
having serious technical issues on both sides tonight.
I'm a rank amateur when it comes to this. I'm not
Well,
I'm not an audio engineer. It may look like I know what I'm doing, but I just like looked at diagrams and magazines to figure out none of this
yeah,
stuff is real audio equipment. It's made with like toothpicks and stuff to look cool and then spray painted. So I
yeah.
have no clue what I'm doing.
Well, I'm embarrassed because I am an audio professional, and the audio messes up on my side, so that's embarrassing. But editing, right? Editing.
Yeah, no, and that's what's going to save me on this show for the audio version.
There you go.
I've got the bandwidth turned all the way down for the video, and I look completely.
I did the same.
Yeah. So you poor bastards that are watching this live are going to watch it on YouTube. Just think of sort of a artistic look at the whole thing, and that's how we're getting by on this. But Joe, I want to thank you for being with me. We're looking at right about an hour now, and I know you kind of came on late notice, and I really appreciate it. And we're going to do, Crash and I are going to do the best to promote the hell out of this, and we want to help you out in any way possible. So when your Crash is in San Diego, I know he'll be there by the time you make it, and when you make it out there, because he's in the Navy and he's kind of stuck there. And,
Okay.
I'm in South Florida, like in Palm Beach County. So
Okay, great. Excellent. Well, I'll be crashing somewhere on your couches or somewhere, hopefully.
I got a guest room for you, and I got a garage with tools and everything. So, and
Well, don't say that. I'll move in, I'll try to move in with those amenities,
Okay. All right, guys, listen,
much, Steve. I appreciate it.
Joe, hang out with me for a minute. I'm going to get all the information. We're going to put it up on the website with all the links. You guys, appreciate you listening again. And as usual, check us out on Facebook, Cafe Racer Podcast, on Twitter at Cafe Racer Pod, Instagram, Cafe Racer Podcast, and our Patreon page. Everything's over at our website, www.caferacer.com. And as Crash would say, get out there and ride.